Hey, how's it going, everyone? All right, welcome back. So in this video, we're going to go ahead and actually open the World Editor, and we're going to go ahead and get started with working with some maps. So let's go ahead and open the World Editor. Shoot. This is going to open the most recent project that I was working on. For you, it should just be a blank image. Sweet, great. So it's going to be a blank image like this. Now, we get to go ahead and create a new file. The default that it's going to ask for a new world is at 10 cells by 10 cells. If you click the question mark here, I believe that it should pull up like a help image, but nothing appeared. So I just hit escape. Anyways, you get to pick the world size. Because we chose 300 by 300 in our GIMP file, that's going to be 1 cell by 1 cell. So remember, each cell is 300 by 300. So every time you add a 1, you add, or every time you add 1, you add 300 to that GIMP image that we need to use. So we're going to use a 1 by 1. I'm going to hit OK, and boom, here's our 1 by 1 cell. If we double click this, this will go ahead and open what's inside of the cell. For now, I'm going to go to View, and I'm going to not show the minimap. You can also use the M shortcut. And you can see that it's all gray. It's this gray color. This gray signifies that there is nothing there. It is effectively no tiles. There is no grass. There is no floor. There is no nothing. So transparent, this gray color means that there is nothing. So what are we going to do? So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the side here. You'll see that there's these tabs down here. We're going to go into the maps layer. The maps, tab. This is going to show basically this is a file structure that you can navigate. In essence, this is kind of like your file explorer. The 2 dots at the top basically mean go up a level or to go back. If you're not sure where you are in your computer, whatever this is showing, for example, what is all this? This is showing down here is going to be the folder location or the path, right, on how to get there. Looks like we are in the buildings folder, in a folder called Sagewood North New Location PZW, which is the most recent project that I've been working on. That's inside of our, World Editor and Project Zomboid modding tools, etc., etc. So that's effectively what we want to do. If I want to go into the World Editor, because in this case we want to go into our Stripesville folder, I'm going to go ahead and delete that, click Stripesville, and then hit enter. If we wanted to navigate using these, again, 2 dots takes us up. So here we are. Here are all of my folders for our maps. If I click double dots, it takes me here, which is the Project Zomboid modding tools, WorldEd, and then we hit Stripesville. So in here, this is where we're going to go into this images folder that we created. As you can see here, because it only reads PNGs, it does not show other files that are not PNGs. So if we look at our file editor here, we have this GIMP XCF file that is absent over here because the World Editor does not use XCF. So if I click on the vegetation layer and I drag and drop, nothing happens. You see there's a little circle with an X through it because it is not a valid drag and drop. Only the base layer, and you notice when I click on the base layer, it creates this new folder. You can disregard that. That's just World Editor automatic stuff. When you click this base layer, this effectively PZ Editor immediately did is it recognized, hey, there's a PNG called Stripesville, and there's a PNG called Stripesville_vegetation. This folder, I can only assume, is that the program immediately took these, compiled them, and created what's called BUMP, BMP. It's effectively a rasterization. So let me click and show. If I click and drag this, click and drag, it's going to show that there's green with, instead of red, right, green grass at the bottom, and instead of red, you can see it's kind of like tree colored now. That's going to be that vegetation layer on top. So the rasterization basically has transformed pixels right into what's called bump. The colors that were specific that we drew on GIMP has now been transformed into colors that are now recognized by the World Editor. This is called a bump image. You can look more up a bump if you want to learn more about it in Google. It is important because in order to get this to show, if I double click this, if I hover, you'll notice that in here is stripesbill.png. That is not what we want. What we want is a TMX file. The TMX files are going to be the files that actually hold the tiles inside of the world editor. So we want to go to this file. Right now, this is at bump, so we want to go from bump to TMX. We can go ahead and affect all cells because this is the beginning. Now, when we click this, it's going to open a dialog. That's going to be this form right here. Now, for rules, blends, and map base, leave that alone. The defaults are great. If you want to figure out on how to edit rules, blends, and map base, that will be in other tutorials that I have no idea how to do, so please find other resources. If you know them, drop them in the comments, leave them to me. I'd love to learn more about them. I believe that Daddy Dirky Dirk's videos talks about rules and blends, but that's a whole other topic. What's important to us is the TMX files. Now it says this directory is going to be the one where the TMX files are going to be created in, and be careful because files in this directory may be overwritten. What this means is we're going to pick a file to save our TMX. When we run bump to TMX, it's going to see what bump image is here. That's stripesbill.png. Then it's going to take those colors and turn them into a TMX, right? Each single pixel is going to be transformed into a tile in a TMX file. It's going to take the name from the PNG, so it's going to be stripesville, and then it's going to put the cell number next to it. So when we effectively create this image, it's going to be stripesville _ 0, 0. If we ever change this cell number, it'll create another TMX file whenever we do bump to TMX. That'll be stripesville and then whatever the new coordinates are. If you don't change the coordinates, anytime that you decide to update this stripesville PNG and you drag and drop it here, whenever you run bump to TMX, if the stripesville 00 is the same, it's going to override the TMX file that you had previously. That's what this is trying to say. All that just to say that we can go ahead and double click and we can go into our stripesville, and here's that TMX folder that we created. Select folder, boom, that's where we're going to save all our TMX files. Now here, assign generated maps to the world. Basically what's going to happen is if I hit OK now, it is going to create a TMX file. But if we do not check this box, the TMX file will not be assigned to this, and therefore nothing will be we won't be able to see our tiles. We're going to have to navigate to our TMX folder and then drag and drop the TMX file. To avoid that manual step of finding your TMX file, dragging and dropping it there, we can simply check this box so that it auto assigns the TMX file into the cell that we want. Now, if there's this apply button here, if we select apply, nothing will happen. If we go up and into our TMX, there are no TMX files. Apply basically says that when we go back BMP to TMX, that all of the settings that we chose are going to be saved, but it's not going to be run. That way we don't have to choose our TMX folder again. We don't have to check these boxes, etc., if we are not ready to hit OK. But if we are ready to hit OK, like right now, for the sake of instruction, I'm going to go ahead and do it. And then you notice that it says generating TMX files for 00. If you had multiple cells, it'll go through the list one by one and generate a TMX file for each cell inside of your world. Because we're doing a one by one cell, it just kind of auto completes right away, and you hit OK because it's finished. If I hover over this, you'll notice that the ending has changed. It is now stripesbill TMX stripesbill _ 00.tmx. So that means that the image that is here is now a TMX file. If we go into TMX, we notice that this folder was created, and here is that stripesbill TMX. Here's the preview. So if we go ahead and double click and open this, we can see now that there are tiles associated. It is no longer gray. Those lines where we drew trees, right? The dense forest is now trees and dense forest, and everything else is the green grass. Hooray! That means that the colors that we have chosen were correct, and everything works correctly. Now, what would have happened if, going back to our GIMP, when we were drawing here, I'm going to bring this back and hide the base. When we were drawing this red, What would have happened if I used a different tool like the paintbrush? What would have happened is, because this is down to the pixel, if we zoom in, some of these pixels are redder than others, right? You see how this is kind of like a gradient leading to red, right? If I draw this next to the actual deep red, which was the pencil, none of these or barely any of these match this red. If is not specifically this shade of red, it will not be recognized when we do bump to TMX. It'll basically give us, hey, there's an error at these specific, cells. Color not recognized. So if you use the brush tool or the airbrush or any tool that effectively does what's called, I believe, anti-aliasing, which means, it gives approximate colors to make it smooth or whatever, which is useful in other types of projects, that is going to give us errors. This is why I recommend at the beginning to use the pencil tool. It is a hard edge, which means that when you paint with it, it's going to absolutely paint the color that you have chosen with that specific RBG, red, blue, green, color mixture. It will always be 25500. That way you don't get any errors and you don't get any weird discrepancies in terms of what you draw. I'm going to hit Control Z to undo all of these spray paints. And that's basically the main thing that I wanted to point out, why we're using this pencil tool. If you ever have the option of selecting anti-aliasing, you want to make sure that anti-aliasing is off. You want to make sure to turn anti-aliasing off and that you change blend modes to override beforehand. If you get colors that will not be recognized by WorldEd, that's going to end up leading to extra work later. As you can see here in my version, there is no anti-aliasing here. We're using the pencil tool, and I have found it to be very useful that it draws the color that I choose. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Save. Any changes that you make, you'll notice the little asterisk there. That just means that something has changed. When you hit Control Save, it'll go away. So that's going to be a quick way for you to check whether you've made any changes that need to be saved or not. All right, with that being said, we're effectively going to go ahead and move on to drawing. So in the next video, I'm just going to do some quick drawing. That way we can go ahead and get some examples of what like roads and stuff look like. But ultimately for here, I would recommend that you just go ahead and go let your imagination run wild, pick the colors that are correct, and go ahead and make yourself a little map. Alrighty, we'll go ahead and call that this video, and we'll get to drawing in the next one. Talk to you soon.